Hello and welcome back to Talking Europe on France 24. Now, over the last couple of months, we've heard about numerous former and retired medics who've picked up their gowns once again to help care for the hundreds of thousands of people suffering from Covid-19 around the world. Well, today on the programme, we're joined by three members of the European Parliament who've done just that, returning to their former jobs as doctors during the pandemic. We're going to be finding out about their experiences and asking where Europe should go next as COVID-19 continues its deadly course. Well, let's introduce our guests. With us from Porto in Portugal, Manuel Pizarro from the Socialists and Democrats group, who's a specialist in internal medicine. Thanks for joining us. We also have with us in Lyon.
It's my pleasure.
In Lyon, in France, we have Veronique Lenoir from President Macron's Renew Europe group. She is a cancer specialist. Thank you for joining us.
Hello.
And in Arnsberg in Germany, Peter Lisa, who is a member of the European People's Party and a general practitioner. Hello to you, Peter Lisa, and thanks to everyone for being with us. So I'd just like to start off really by asking you each about your work over the last couple of months in this unprecedented period. First, you, Peter Lisa, as a general practitioner, what's your experience been?
Yeah, I decided to go back to my practice because I was afraid that also in Germany we could get a very big number of infected and ill people. Fortunately, that was not the case, but it was a very serious experience because in the first weeks, I started in March, we didn't have any protective equipment like masks, and that was difficult. I always thought I can be infected and infect others. I didn't even meet my children or my mother. And the second very impressive experience was the brother of one of my colleagues that I worked with is intensive care medicine in the Netherlands. Mm-hmm. And in April, the situation in the Netherlands was really serious. He had a lot of patients, and this intensive care medicine said he'd never experienced such a stress also personally. After treating patients for 1 week, he was completely exhausted because it's such a pain also for the doctor.
Manuel Pizarro, I know that you've been working in a hospital, your own hospital in Porto. What's your experience been of this pandemic?
Well, I came back to my own hospital because I'm a doctor in that Universitary Hospital in Porto, which is the biggest hospital in north of Portugal. The first weeks, as Peter said, were very intense because everybody was quite concerned with the situation. We didn't know where it is going to end. We saw the images in some of the European countries, namely in Italy, and they were frightening. And so there was a great tension. Then we have very good results in public health in Portugal, and we have dealt very well with the infection. And so week after week, things became more normal. I left the work in hospital in the beginning of May, but it was a very important personal experience to see how everybody, mainly the new generation, was so courageous in the fight against coronavirus infection.
And coming to you, Veronique Lenoir, right here in France, the same as us at France 24, a country that's seen a very high number of deaths, of course. You're a cancer specialist, and there has been concern, hasn't there, that people are not seeking treatment for illnesses like cancer because they're so concerned about the pandemic. Can you just tell us about how you've lived the last couple of months?
Well, first of all, I have never given up my clinical activity since I was elected. But during the lockdown, I transferred my activity of follow-up and surveillance of cancer patients into telemedicine. Of course, not for very ill patients, not for patients at diagnosis, not for patients at end-of-life stage, but for stable patients whom I know before, who were legitimately afraid to come to the hospital because they are fragile and the COVID is very dangerous for them. So I talked to them took their biological results and scanners and so on and so forth, and was able to accompany them, to help them, to take decisions, and if needed, to come back to my colleagues in the hospital, because, of course, there are situations where telemedicine is not enough. But frankly, this experience was very positive, and I'm quite sure that we will continue to have certain kind of clinics made through telemedicine, and patients like it when possible, and so do I.
Absolutely. There could be big changes for the future from this experience for everybody, couldn't there? I'll stay with you, Veronique Lenoir. Looking to what's happening now and the next stages, we're seeing each country in the EU loosening or easing its lockdown conditions at a different pace. We're seeing people in different countries being told to keep different distances, different businesses are allowed to open in different places. There has been criticism of a lack of coordination. Do you agree with that criticism? And do you feel that it could be a risk to health, having this lack of coordination around Europe?
Criticism was all right at the very beginning of the pandemic. The Commission and the European Union have made great efforts in terms of transferring patients, financing research, securing stockpiling of medical equipment. Of course, we must do better. We have all voted in the European Parliament a resolution on which I have been working hard during the lockdown. It says 3 points. One is better coordination and enhanced power of the agencies, EMA, ECDC. Second is restoration of sovereignty for medicines and vaccines, sovereignty towards third countries, and sovereignty towards the pharmaceutical industry. And the third one is to finance research and to make sure that clinical trials are made in cooperation and are not in competition one towards the other.
Peter, Lisa, if I can come back to you, your country, Germany, has been praised for its handling of the pandemic. Same question to you. Are you concerned about the lack of coordination in the easing stage?
Yeah, I think we could do better. I agree with Veronique that ECDC needs to get much more staff and much more power. We have different recommendations in different parts of Europe with the same kind of figures on the virus. And I think we should have the same recommendation for the same situation. Not everything needs to be Europe, but for example, the question of aviation, there needs to be a European framework. I'm very happy that CDC and the European Airways Agency have just given a recommendation. We cannot have very strict regulation on restaurants and many other areas, and the airplanes are completely full. Here we need much more European.
And coming to you, Manuel Pizarro, you also in a country that's seen as having quite well handled the pandemic in terms of the number of infections and deaths that you've had. But picking up that point about travel and borders, there are calls for borders to be reopened. Europeans want to go on holiday in other European countries as they're used to doing. Now, you're in a tourist hotspot there in Portugal. Is this something that you fear? Should we be more hesitant about travelling around Europe at this point?
But we must deal with the situation because we don't know exactly how the pandemic, how the new coronavirus is going to progress in the next few months. So we must be prudent about releasing everything and about coming back to the previous normal. Perhaps we should use ourselves to a new normal that should be different. However, I think that we have a great opportunity to put more health in the European policies. I think that European citizens want that the European Union do more things, do more about health, and I think that we have a huge opportunity to do that. Because coordination, as Peter and Veronique have told, we have already agencies, they must be empowered, and they must have more coordination, but we need to have more political action in the health field, and we have opportunity to do that, first of all, in the European Parliament, in my view.
Well, I'd just like to ask that question very quickly to both of our other guests. If you can just give me an answer really in one sentence. Do you agree that the European Union should have more power over health? Some say there are issues of sovereignty. I'll come to you first, Veronique Lenoir. Should there be more EU power over health policy?
Yes, I do. But to do that, we do not need to revise the treaties. We do not need to create a new instance. We need to work on coordination, sovereignty and research and have a special dedicated budget for health into the European Union.
Same question to you, Peter Lisa.
I fully agree. The European Union has already a lot of powers in the treaty, but we need to use them, and especially on pandemic preparedness, no virus will respect any border. We need to work together, and this according to the treaty. We just need to do it.
OK, unfortunately, we are out of time, but I'd like to thank you all very much for taking part in this roundtable discussion today. Peter Lisa, Veronique Lenoir and Manuel Pizarro, our three doctor MEPs joining us today. Thanks very much. And thanks as well to our viewers for watching the programme. Do remember you can catch up with all the updates on the pandemic here on France 24, France24.com and our social networks. I hope to see you soon for another edition of Talking Europe.
Some of the world's most influential people talk to France 24.
Government cannot do much promotion of human value.
Politicians.
E acho que sem política não há democracia.
Scientists, athletes and artists.
Nous, les femmes, si on se serre les coudes, on peut vraiment avoir une action très très positive sur le monde.
The American Film Festival in Deauville.
Get all the insight.
The government is still spying.
And the voices that matter on France 24.
Liberté, égalité, actualité.